My brothers and sisters, this is Sister Mary, and you are listening to Lighting the Way Ministries. This is Exodus in the Amplified Version, chapter 1, and I'll probably go to chapter 2 or 3. So, Exodus, Amplified Bible, chapter 1. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came into Egypt with Jacob, each with his household: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan and Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All the offspring of Jacob were 70 persons. Joseph was already in Egypt, and then Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. But the descendants of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, and the land was full of them. Now a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. He said to his people, "Behold, the Israelites are too many and too mighty for us, as they outnumber us both in people and in strength. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply more, and should war befall us, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape out of the land." So they set over the Israelites taskmasters to afflict and oppress them with increased burdens. And the Israelites built Pithom and Rameses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more they multiplied and expanded, so that the Egyptians were vexed and alarmed because of the Israelites. And the Egyptians reduced the Israelites to severe slavery. They made their lives bitter with hard service in mortar, brick, and all kinds of work in the field. All their service was with harshness and severity. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, of whom one was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, "When you act as midwives to the Hebrew women and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter, she shall live." But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded, but let the male babies live. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, "Why have you done this thing and allowed the male children to live?" The midwives answered Pharaoh, "Because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. They are vigorous and quickly delivered. Their babies are born before the midwife comes to them." So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and became very strong. And because the midwives revered and feared God, he made them households of their own. Then Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, "Every son born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the river Nile, but every daughter you shall allow to live." Exodus chapter 2. Now Amram, a man of the house of Levi, the priestly tribe, went and took his wife, Jochebed, a daughter of Levi. And the woman became pregnant and bore a son. And when she saw that he was exceedingly beautiful, she hid him 3 months. And when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark or basket made of bulrushes or papyrus, making it waterlight by dabbing it with bitumen and pitch. Then she put the child in it and laid it among the rushes by the brink of the river Nile. And his sister Miriam stood at some distance away to learn what would be done to him. Now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the bank, and she saw the ark among the rushes, and sent her maid to fetch it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby cried. And she took pity on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse of Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the girl went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed it, and the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called him Moses, for she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." And one day after Moses was grown, it happened that he went out to his brethren and looked at their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of Moses's brethren. He looked this way and that way, and when he saw no one, he killed the Egyptian and laid him in the sand. He went out the second day and saw two Hebrew men quarreling and fighting, and he said to the unjust aggressor, "Why are you striking your comrade?" And the man said, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you intend to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "Surely this thing is known." When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh's presence and took refuge in the land of Midian, where he sat down by a well. Now the priest of the Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. The shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to rule Jethro, their father, he said, "How is it that you have come so soon today?" And they said, "An Egyptian delivered us from the shepherds. Also he drew water for us and watered the flock." He said to his daughters, "Where is he? Why have you let the man? Why have you left the man? Call him that he may eat bread." And Moses was content to dwell with the man. And he gave Moses Zipporah, his daughter. And she bore a son. And he called his name Gershom, expulsion, or a stranger there. For he said, "I have been a stranger and a sojourner in a foreign land." However, after a long time, nearly 40 years, the king of Egypt died, and the Israelites were sighing and groaning because of the bondage. And they kept crying, and their cry because of the slavery ascended to God. And God heard their sighing and groaning, and earnestly remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God saw the Israelites and took knowledge of them and concerned himself about them, knowing all and understanding, remembering all. Exodus chapter 3. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the back or west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb or Sinai, the mountain of God. Sinai. Sorry, guys. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, yet was not consumed. And Moses said, "I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned." And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the midst of the bush, and said, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here I am." And God said, "Do not come near. Put your shoes off your feet, for the place on which you stand is holy ground." Also he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. And the Lord said, "I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters and oppressors, for I know their sorrow and sufferings and trials. And I have come down to deliver them out of the hand and power of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a land of good and large, a land flowing with milk and honey, a land of plenty, to the place of the Canaanite, the Hittite, the Amorite, the Pezerite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite. Now behold, the cry of the Israelites has come to me, and I have also seen how the Egyptian oppresses them. Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. And Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And God said, "I will surely be with you, and this shall be the sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain, Horeb or Sinai." And Moses said to God, "Behold, when I come to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they say to me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" And God said to Moses, "I am who I am, and what I am, and I will be what I will be." And he said, "You shall say this to the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" God said also to Moses, "This shall you say to the Israelites, 'The Lord, the God of your fathers, of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and by this name I am to be remembered to all generations. Go gather the elders of Israel together, the mature teachers, and tribal leaders, and say to them, The Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Jacob, appeared to me, saying, I have surely visited you and seen that which is done to you in Egypt. And I have declared that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanite, the Hittite, and the Amorite, the Pezerite, and the Hivite, and the Jebusite, to a land flowing with milk and honey. And the elders shall believe and obey your voice, and you shall go, you and the elders of Israel, to the king of Egypt, and you shall say to him, The Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, and now let us go. We beseech you 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. And I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go, unless forced to do so. No, not by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and smite Egypt with all my wonders which I will do in it, and after that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor and respect in the sight of the Egyptians. And it shall be that when you go, you shall not go empty handed. But every woman shall insistently solicit of her neighbor, and of her that may be residing at her house, jewels and articles of silver and gold, and garments which you shall put on your sons and daughters, and you shall strip the Egyptians of belongings due to you.